Okay. All right. So one sec. Okay, I'm gonna turn this down because I think this is a little too high for you guys. Okay. Woo. So this is probably gonna be an interesting review since I have a friend Eli who does like this movie, and my friend Zach who is very fervent in saying that I am not going to watch this movie. So it is the 2019 Aladdin remake. And before I get into a lot about why I think the movie on some levels works, I mean, the movie's not as good as the original. I'm just going to cut to the chase. But it is a film that does have some good moments. So I would like to talk about the good elements because there's actually a surprisingly long list. I'm assuming all of you know the story of the original animated film from the 90s. So this movie, it doesn't. It does tell the movie almost shot for shot, but it does have some variations. Like they change around the beginning a little bit. They change up how Aladdin meets Jasmine, and it's like an alternate version of the movie instead of a point by point remake. Um, an example, spoilers. An example would be Aladdin and Jasmine meet at the very beginning of the movie. Unlike the animated one where we meet Jasmine in the palace and then she runs away. In this one, they cut out her running away to her being in the marketplace. So if you're going into this movie and you haven't seen the 1992 original, which I think might have been one of the rare cases for people in the theater, you might get a little thrown, but it's a little. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Um, I think that also they do a lot. They do a lot of musical scenes that are taken from the original. They change a few of the lyrics, but it's the same melody and the same chord progression for a lot of these. Um, Naomi Scott, who plays Jasmine, she was the only legitimately good singer in the cast. Everyone else kind of sound flat or auto tuned or monotone. It was not a good sound at all. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna say the other three the three main characters I got to sing. I mentioned Jasmine. Will Smith as Vijini and Mena Massoud as Aladdin. They were not really good at all. I mean, the one scene where Will Smith's singing kind of sounded passable was "Friend Like Me," but that was because he put a lot of energy and gusto into the performance. You know, and that was one of the main things that makes that musical scene work in the original. Because Robin Williams, you can tell he's not good at singing in the technical sense, but his voice has such charisma and personality that it doesn't matter. He's still able to pull off a good performance and is able to hide the fact that he has no musical background. You know, Will Smith is a rapper, but the thing with rapping is you're not really singing a series of notes necessarily. You're kind of talk singing with beats in the background. It's not like um, a rock musician or a country musician where you're. It's not like regular singing where you have to hit the right note at the right time and go up or down depending on the music. It's a different craft, and so I think I'll address the elephant in the room right off the bat. Will Smith. Okay, it's really hard to live up to someone like Robin Williams in this role, but to Will Smith's credit, he takes a little bit of the attitude from Robin Williams, but throws a lot of his Will Smith charm into it, and that actually works pretty well for the movie. There are some jokes that are legitimately funny, like the one bit where he looks at Aladdin after they're trying to meet the princess, and he's like, I've been around for 10,000 years, and I've never been so embarrassed in my life when they're trying to introduce. There's a lot of funny scenes, and the scene I'm talking about is where right after Aladdin becomes a prince and tries to bullshit his way into the palace, and he keeps fumbling and bumbling his way through his sentences, and Will Smith is this kind of he doesn't actually do this, but you can tell he's thinking, "Oh, for God's sake, man!" You know that was pretty funny. Um, They do add a new character in this movie that she doesn't really add anything to the Dahlia. She doesn't really add anything to the movie except give Genie some of the chase. And that's kind of awkwardly cute and fun to watch. I really do like that. Um, so, I mean, I feel like with Will Smith, he did a good job. On his own, it was really good, but yeah, when you compare it to the original, it's kind of like, okay, you did a good job, Will, but you're trying it's like trying to go up against the best in the business when it's really tough. I mean, no one's going to top Robin Williams. So Will Smith did a good job to give the original performance a little run for its money, but it's just a few notches below. It's kind of a distant second, but anyway. Um, and I think the since I kind of want, I'm going to go to the negatives a little more now, then go back to the positives. Another thing I would say about the movie that I'm not really sure how I feel about Mena Massoud's performance as Aladdin, because there are points where he does get the essence of the character right, but a lot of his lines are kind of said in this very quiet, mellow voice, and I'm not sure if he's just not that good at emoting or if the script, I mean, the script doesn't really give him a lot to work with. Aladdin's kind of a blank slate. So the character is basically whatever you bring to it. And I think the problem with this is that he wasn't really given a lot of cool stuff to do in terms of acting. Stunt work, yes. I mean, there's a lot of great stunt work in the movie where Aladdin's trying to evade the guards or do a lot of acrobatic jumps and leaps and stuff like that. That's a lot of fun to watch. But sometimes in the scenes where Aladdin's supposed to come off as really charming, there's a little of that charm there. It's like they got the tick of how the character would act in certain situations, but in other scenes it just kind of falls flat and is uninspired. But I haven't seen this actor in any other movie aside from this. So I'm not sure how much of it is him not being that charismatic and how much of it is just the fact that I'm not sure how much of the issues is from the script and Guy Ritchie directing, because a lot of an actor's performance does fall heavily on the coaching from the director and the writing and the screenplay. So I'm not going to say Masood is bad. I'm just going to say he seems like one of those actors where if you don't give him a lot of material to work with, based on what I've seen, he falls flat. Not bad, just not good enough to elevate a bland character on paper into something better. So, I would also say that um, I don't really like the pacing of the beginning of the movie because it starts with them singing Arabian Nights, but they're singing it over one of the famously dark scenes from the original where Jafar grabs some bum off the street and throws him into the Cave of Wonders. Like they play the song over that scene, and in the original it's supposed to be a creepy, mysterious atmosphere, and having a song play in the background while they're shooting it, I mean, it does kind of show all the major plot points in play that to set up the story. It just kind of takes away from the mood that the Cave of Wonder scene is supposed to have at the beginning. And But to go back to the positives, the set design and the costumes were amazing. I mean, I could tell that from the trailer, but that was going to be the A plus of the movie. That was a lot. That was really cool to look at. So that the stunt work, the choreography is amazing in this movie, and a lot of it does follow the kind of hip hop dance kind of stuff. But it's very energized, and it's really creative how they have the genie use magic to kind of turn you into a puppet and start dancing, like Michael Jackson meets Prince on steroids. So that was really impressive to watch. Um, so I feel like the movie. I kind of feel the same way about this movie that I felt about the Footloose and the Evil Dead remakes, which is like, okay, you kind of got the tick of the original story, but it was just done better by the original film. Granted, I would say that the Footloose remake is probably about the same level, of good. It's probably about a similar level of this movie. The Evil Dead remake of the three I just mentioned is probably the best of the bunch, but um, I do think that the script, if they really wanted to remake Aladdin and capture the charm or the charisma of the original, I think the director would have. I think Guy Ritchie would have had to have been a little more pushy on the actors to get the right performance out of them. Because there are times where it just seems like the actors are not giving enough emotion or giving just barely enough to avoid being bland. I mean, Will Smith is the best part of the movie, and so is Naomi Scott, but that's not a super high bar to clear. Um, I think this movie's okay. I don't like it. I certainly don't hate it. I'm somewhere right down the middle of the street here on this one. So I don't really know what else I can say. I was amused by some interesting scenes, but it kind of falls flat. Um, there's really not a whole lot I can say. There's some good things. There's some bad things. It doesn't really make the movie great or awful. It's really just in the eye of the beholder right now, and that's really all I had to say. I'm not sure what I'm going to review next week, but you'll see soon enough. See ya.